So we have started recording. Once again, welcome everyone. The webinar is How Machine Translation Improves Translation Productivity. I'd like to start by introducing today's speaker from Canton MT Professional Services team. Tony O'Dowd is the founder and chief architect of continentecom, a leading cloud-based machine translation platform. And with us today is Louise Faherty, who is our technical project manager with extensive project management experience in translation and localization industry. She has worked at Transperfect, where she managed complex translation workflows. In today's webinar, Tony and Louise will talk about how to deal with translation challenges in today's age of content explosion, and why machine translation is inevitable in order to stay ahead of the game. Let's get started. Louise?
Thank you very much, Pauline, for that introduction, and welcome everybody to this webinar on translation productivity and how we can improve that with the Canton MT platform. I'm just going to speak to introduce the company. I'm just going to say a few words about how we're working at the minute and a little bit of history of the current status of machine translation. So first of all, I'll speak about who we are and what we stand for. Then we're going to talk about translation velocity and how the content explosion has expedited the use of machine translation in the modern age. Then we're going to look at 3 case studies that Canton MT have dealt with in relation to productivity. These are in 3 different industries. Firstly, e-commerce, then the automotive industry, and then we're going to look at software, documentation and UI. So hopefully these are 3 areas that we all have a bit of interest and a little bit of knowledge about, and I'll explore the projects that Canton MT did, the problems we faced, any obstacles and how we overcame them with the platform. Then I'm going to speak possibly more specifically about how Canton MT addresses productivity and how it can be used as a tool to increase productivity in your localization departments. And then we're going to go through a few conclusions on what this increase in productivity means for the industry and what it means for your clients and your work. And then, of course, at the end, we'll have a short Q&A session where I'll hand you back to Pauline, and we also have Brian Coyle, our Chief Commercial Officer, who is on hand to answer a few more questions. So let's get started. So KantanMT.com is a statistical MT platform, machine translation platform. It is cloud-based, which means that it is highly scalable. We have some clients operating on relatively low word counts and other clients who are translating up to 1 billion words or over 1 million words a month. That makes it very inexpensive to operate because we're in the cloud. We're not wasting money on server costs and managing that. KantanMT.com is a fusion of transition memory and machine translation and rules-based. So we really are a blended approach. I'll explore this a little bit more later on, but we really take the industry status on how to approach machine translation, and that we're looking at what works currently for translation localization and how can we make MT fit into that spectrum. We produce high-speed, high-quality translations with our clients' translation data, and it's extremely customized and suitable for what you're trying to translate. The Canton MT vision is to put machine translation, the customization, the improvement and deployment of machine translation into your hands. So we really have hopefully developed a system that is extremely easy to use, it's intuitive, and it works for our clients and is as flexible for what they want to use. Just to look at some of the current stats on the KantanMT.com site, we have 7,825 current active engines. That's across a number of different clients and profiles. Currently, we have 137 billion of 291,423,680 training words uploaded. I was a little bit concerned I wouldn't get through that. And we also have just under 5 5 billion words translated to date on the site. We were just discussing this before the meeting there, and that's working out currently this year at about 500,000 words a month. 500 million, apologies, 500 million words a month. So understandably, we're really proud of these statistics, and we believe that, you know, the facts show that we can handle extremely high scale and extremely low scale projects like with like. So we have built a community of a number of clients who are dealing with localization in-house and a number of LSPs, and we like to refer to them as the Canton community because it's their work that's developing how we're operating our platform. We're learning from their projects, from any issues or obstacles that they have come up against, and we're trying every day to improve the platform to make those issues go away and to make their localization workflows more efficient. So that's a little bit of a background of who Canton MT is. So what are we up against? So we all know that this is an era of constant content creation, and that there is content springing up anywhere, anytime, on any device. So just to go through some statistics on that, there's 144 billion emails, 540 million photos, and more than 100 hours of video online every single day. That's just uploaded per day. So if we're trying to translate this content and trying to translate it into a number of different languages, machine translation is really the only viable option to make sure that the message is delivered to as many people as possible all over the world. And that world is growing as well. Until recently, the internet was available in a relatively small population comparative to the world population, but that's growing all the time. So there's more connectivity across the world, and we need to develop more languages as a result. This is extremely important, obviously, if your business is trading online, which most of what businesses are these days, and it means there's $270 million spent online every minute, which is a staggering statistic for us to be dealing with. So we're now looking at an international trade and commerce world, and commerce is a multilingual conversation, which means for us the possibilities are completely endless. With endless possibilities, though, we have a few problems to overcome. So our creators and our consumers of content are now in varying worlds and languages, and coming from an extreme selection of backgrounds. So how do you make sure that none of these users are left behind? Well, we have to learn how to scale our workflows, which we've definitely adapted into the Canton MT model. We've tried to make sure that our clients can move with the times and can scale up as quickly as possible to match demand. And also, obviously, we're working to address this multilingual consumption, which is, as we've discussed, all over the world, all in real time, and growing exponentially. So to do that, I'm going to hand you over to Tony O'Dowd here, and we're going to discuss the 3 case studies that we mentioned, which deal with 3 very hot topic industries. Firstly, we're going to look at the e-commerce industry, which is translating a catalogue of products and everything that goes with that. We're going to look at translating technical documents for the automotive industry. And we're also going to look at translating user assistance and user interface for the software industry. So,
thank you very much, Louise, and good afternoon to everybody. We have a large crowd here today, so hopefully we'll be able to impart some of our wisdom and how we've managed to improve translation productivity for our clients. And to be honest, the best way to talk about that is to show you the benefits that our clients derive from integrating machine translation into their localization process. So rather than me tell you what we do, I'm going to let our clients tell you what we do by way of these case studies. And as part of this presentation as well, all of these case studies are available in your handout folder, which you'll be able to see on the right-hand side of your screen as well. So the very first case study we're going to talk about is probably one of the biggest consumers sectors, one of the biggest consumers of content, and that's the e-commerce sector. So here's one of the biggest e-commerce players in the Nordic market, KantanMT. It's a Norwegian company, and they sell a range of products just like any sort of e-commerce platform, ranging from cosmetics all the way up to jackets, up to pens, and even electronic goods as well. So they have a vast range of products that they actually sell. Now, this particular company wanted to launch this website fully translated into the Swedish language. So they were starting off with Norwegian and they wanted to translate into Swedish. So straight away, probably not the best language combinations to consider machine translation. And I must say, initially the client was quite skeptical that they could actually translate from Norwegian, which is such a complex language, into a slightly less complex language, Swedish, but nonetheless complex language as well. The parameters of the project was that they had to do this in 19 days. And as part of this, they wanted to translate the beauty product catalogue. Now, to this day, I'm amazed how many different colour reds there are available in ladies' lipsticks. I didn't realise there was such a huge range, but that's the type of content that we have to translate as part of this project. The total word count, by the way, was 780,000 words. And we had to integrate machine translation directly into an already existing localization workflow. Now, key thing about this client is that they were never ever, they had never previously used machine translation, and secondly, there was a high level of skepticism that this could actually work for them. It was their first foray or journey on and using statistical machine translation system. The challenges for us was that they had sparse training data. In fact, we had to go out and source a lot of training data ourselves. And just like any other project in the localization industry today, the project is the live project. There's no time to test the system. In other words, there was no user acceptance period, there was no grace period or honeymoon period where we could do a bit of trial and error and actually do language quality review. We had to go straight into the live project. And of course, you guys, you know, you're all part of the localization industry. You kind of know what that's like. We all got clients that ask us to do more for less, faster. That's the kind of the thing that we're asked to do every day in this industry. So what were the results? Well, 780,000 words were localized into Swedish, from Danish into Swedish in 17 days, and the total project saving versus traditional localization approach was 62%. So quite a lion's share of savings there, which is great. But in terms of translator productivity, they were able to post edit at approximately 8,000 words per day. Now, considering the average translator translates at 2,500 words per day, that's a pretty good sustained productivity improvement. It's in excess of 300%. And the solution was found to be very highly scalable for this client because they ended up doing an additional 2 languages for their website in the following 3 weeks. And what they found was that the PE, the post-editing cost, was reduced after they retrained their engines with the post-edits from their translators. So again, it shows you that building a machine translation engine is not a singular task. You build the engine, you use the engine, and then typically you're going to have to retrain that engine to continuously improve it over the life cycle of the project and the life cycle of the engine as well. Again, be mindful here that this particular client had never used machine translation before. Now, the second case study I'm going to talk about is a different industry entirely, and we like to change industries just to show you how universal, I guess, machine translation can be used across the industries. And this is the truck industry. So this is one of the largest truck manufacturers in the world. And they're based in Germany. In fact, they are the largest truck manufacturer in Europe at the moment. Vast amount of technical information that needs to be translated, and obviously it's all to do with truck engines and hydraulics and various other components of a high-end truck. So first of all, the challenge here, or the objectives of the project rather, was that in all cases the source language was German. And again, that's a bit of an ouch of a start, or a complex start for machine translation systems, because generally speaking, most people would exclude Germany as a good language to start with. But this is even more complex because not only was it one of our original languages, it was the source language for this. And then there was 8 languages developed for European languages and Eastern European languages as well. Again, they had an existing localization workflow, which we couldn't break. We weren't allowed to break it. We had to integrate into existing processes. And this particular company worked really, really fast. In fact, they worked lightning fast, and they did what's known as a 2-week sprint. So they translated for 2 weeks, and then they created new content and translated for another 2 weeks. So it was continuous feeding of translation. There was no kind of start of project and 3, 4, 5 weeks later or 2 months later an end of project. It was continuous localization required here. And the challenge was to build 8 engines and get them implemented, integrated and deployed all in the period of 6 months. Okay, and they also wanted a retraining process to quickly incorporate the post-editing, because obviously if they were running translation sprints over 2 weeks, at the end of every 2 weeks they want to be able to retrain those engines so that the translators don't do the same or don't fix the same errors over and over again. And perhaps fixing errors over and over, same errors over and over again, is the number one I guess frustration that translators have when they use machine translation systems, because traditional MT systems have been so difficult and cumbersome to retrain. So they gave us the challenge that they wanted very quick retraining of their engines. So what sort of results did they get? Well, delighted to say that they had all 6 languages available within 6 months. They saw an 87% increase in translation velocity. So that went from an average of 2,400 words a day to 4,400 words per day per translator. And in fact, they have sustained that rate ever since, which is very, very good. It's a great testimony for this particular client as well. In total, there was a 30% saving, and what they used that savings for is to do additional languages. Okay, so they didn't pocket that saving. So the LSP that they were working with ended up actually doing more languages and actually growing their revenue from this particular client. So great success. And again, this client had never used translation or machine translation systems. So within the space of 6 months, they'd gone from no use of MT to a highly sophisticated implementation of MT as well. Now the third case study, and again the reason we're showing you these case studies is because nothing speaks more about machine translation than the successes that some of our clients have experienced. The third case then is a company in the software industry, and this is a company called Interactive Intelligence, who is a leader in customer engagement and communication and collaboration software. So what these guys build is software to run in call centers and intelligent routing of telephone messages or inbound telephone calls and so on and so forth. Very, very large company. Again, no experience of using machine translation before, and they wanted to build a machine translation engine for their online help system. Okay, so it's not technical content now, it's actually help describing how you would use a product. The pilot they chose was from English into German, but they were mindful of the fact that whatever we did, they wanted it to scale to multiple languages later on. So they didn't want a once-off engagement. They didn't want a once-off success on a project. Whatever happened or whatever we put in place for this particular project, we also had to make sure that it was scalable to other vendors or other languages as well. And they had a really set focus on the productivity of their translators. So they wanted to calculate how fast or how faster their translators and their professional translators could actually operate post-translation or post-deployment of this system. In terms of the challenges here, it was an online help content system which had an awful lot of proprietary markup language built into the help system. So it wasn't your standard help system. It had links and videos and images and all sorts of stuff going on as well to make it a very rich and rewarding experience for their clients. And it was an incredibly tight production schedule. So they wanted this done in less than 4 months. So they wanted a pilot completed, improved and deployed, and additional languages all in a 4-month period. And I guess we all know in the industry that this is typical. We want everything done more for less, faster. That's the kind of the mantra a lot of our clients hear from their clients on a day-to-day basis. So the results were that we had a very highly scalable system, 4 languages in 6 months, which was fantastic. That was, again, their first time using machine translation. They were very happy with the translation output. In fact, they commented on how high quality it was. And they saw, depending on the language, between a 30 and 50% improvement in productivity, translator productivity. And the total project savings, depending on the language, ranged from 27% to 40% as well, which is a pretty good saving, it has to be said, on the overall project. And again, one of the things that they experienced, or they noted, was that the more they retrained their engine, the post-editor got easier, and their rates got lower as well, because it was less to fix and it was easier to fix post-edited. So we have 3 projects there. Catalog translation from the e-commerce industry, the automotive industry, and the software industry, who you might think are very diverse and divergent industries, but they all had one thing in common. They wanted to speed up their translation process. They all had no experience, all 3 of them had limited or no experience in machine translation. They knew what machine translation was, but they'd never implemented it. And all 3 clients wanted to introduce and integrate a highly efficient and high quality machine translation system as part of live projects. They didn't go off and do large scale pilots that go on for months. They wanted to actually taste machine translation, implement machine translation directly onto live projects. More importantly, they wanted to see the feedback and the ROI instantaneously. So we have 3 case studies, and they're available to you here in your handouts if you want to read more information about this. But to be honest, guys, the real heroes in these particular projects was not the Cantan platform. Yes, we provided the technology, but the real heroes were these 2 guys. These 2 companies called Multilingual and KantanMT. These are localization service providers that have built their business, or aspects of their business, around the Cantan platform. And in my mind, these are the guys that deserve all the kudos for delivering these benefits for these particular clients. So Multilingual built the engines for their clients. They improved those engines. They deployed those engines. They provided all the post-editing services for those engines, and they were able to generate that translation productivity for their clients. KantanMT worked for the large truck manufacturer in Europe and really excelled themselves in building high-quality engines that had German as their source language, and were able to deliver significant benefits and added value to their clients as well. So there's a kind of a lesson here. If you think that as an LSP, machine translation is beyond your grasp, or perhaps it's too complex to get my hands around, how can I use it to build value in my business? How can I use it to share those benefits with my clients? Go no further than talking to these guys. They've done it, and in both cases, Multilingual and KantanMT, it was their first time using machine translation as well. So that just gives you a sense of context, I guess, to what you can do with the Cantan platform. So I'm going to hand you back now to Louise, who's going to finish today's presentation with a few other hints and tips about our platform as well.
Thank you very much, Tony, for presenting those as well. So just to finish up here, we're going to look briefly at some of the aspects of the platform that we use every day in professional services to increase productivity. And we, as I mentioned at the beginning of the conversation, these are driven by customer need. So these really are taking learning from LSPs and from clients that are using our MT systems and applying that into technological advances. So we've split them into 3 groups, I guess you would say. The first group is we increase productivity when we're building your translation engine. The first way we do that is we have rule pre-processing files which you can upload to your machine as you're building it with your training data, and it will dynamically alter your training data. So, for example, say if you have a terminology change and you know that you have TMs with lots and lots of this terminology used, you won't need to go through all those TMs and alter that yourself. You can upload a file with a regular expression while you're building your engine, and that will alter the data for you. We also have a feature on the site called Cantan Timeline, And with Canton Timeline, we're able to create a history for every engine on the site. So for example, some of our clients have been using the same engines for a year and a half, maybe even longer. They're constantly tweaking those engines, adding new data, taking out some data, changing aspects. And Canton Timeline enables them to look back at the long history of the data and of the engine, and see where their changes have taken effect. It's extremely verbose in that you can see changes in word count, you can see changes in scores, you can see what files you've uploaded. And also there's an archive feature where if you're quite happy with an engine, you can click archive and then you're able to come back to that engine even after you've built with perhaps some new training data. Thirdly, when you're building your translation engine, you can also use the feature Build Analytics. And again, this is extremely useful for our clients. It's a very explicit, very easy to use rundown of all the different scores that we apply automatically to your engine. You can also use it, so you can use it for your three main scores, which is your F measure, your blue and your tear. You can also use it to check to see if there's any gaps in your training data, and it will also tell you if perhaps some of your training data hasn't made it into the engine and why that might be. Perhaps there's we're not sure about the quality, maybe there's a difference in the placeholders and we're wondering maybe if this data hasn't been aligned properly. So it's a real backdoor to the engine, and you can look in and see how your data has affected or will affect the translation quality coming from the engine. How does this relate back to productivity? Well, you're saving time checking the quality with human reviewers because you can see very easily the current standard of the translations that are coming from the engine through Build Analytics. So you don't need to, say for example, you want to test the quality of your engine, you don't need to go and get reviewers to check your content. You can get it to a benchmark level of, say for example, a 60% blue score, and then you know, okay, after that level, I'm happy to test that with a human translator to check on the quality. So it's very useful for checking that. Next, Canton MT increases productivity on a document level. So while you're translating, how does Canton MT increase your productivity? One of the newest features and one of the more exciting features that we're introducing recently is KantanMT. What KantanMT allows you to do is dynamically alter measurements and quantities in your data and localize them automatically. So say for example, if it was an e-commerce catalog and you're going from UK English to German, well obviously if you have feet and inches or pounds and ounces in that, you'll want to eventually localize that into the metric system. Well, you can upload a KantanMT file and it will do the calculation automatically and localize that for you. So again, you're cutting down on post-editing time, on perhaps repetitive effort from translators, and increasing productivity. On a document level, you can also leverage your TM. So when you are training an MT engine, you're usually using your TM as your training data. So that's your bilingual assets. So when we go to translate a document, we want to make sure that you don't use any of the 100% or 90%, 95% matches that are coming from your TM. Canton Total Recall means that everything that's a high score match for your TM is automatically used over and above machine translation. So we know that the consistency and the quality and the terminology that you've worked hard to put into your TM won't be lost through machine translation, it's preserved. And then of course when you go back to retrain the engine with your post edits, it's preserved again, and the likelihood of the correct translation coming out is increased. So thirdly, on a document level, KantanMT increases productivity with PEX edits. What a PEX rule file is a post-edit automation, and it post-edits files before you've even downloaded them. So say, for example, if you have a very repetitive post-edit concerning some punctuation, or if the date format has been changed, say, for example, going from US English to French, and you want to change the date format, then you can do that automatically with a PEX rule. Again, this is cutting down vastly on any post-editing effort, and it's also leading to happier post-editors because they're not spending their time fixing non-linguistic, perhaps not quite interesting edits, they're spending their time on the linguistic aspects and everything else is done automatically. Thirdly, KantanMT increases productivity in your translation workflow. So the main aspect of this would be using the Canton API. The Canton API allows you to use your Canton MT engine like a normal TM within many CAT tools, including Trados Studio, MemoQ, XTM Cloud, or MemSource Cloud. We provide you with a key that can be loaded into a plugin in your CAT tool of choice, and then you'll be able to see MT matches come into your translation projects like you would from a TM. So quite difficult to explain in without showing you how it works, but this is how the vast majority of our clients are using their MT engines. They're not even going to the Canton MT site, they're using them within their CAT tool. Once the engine's built, they just take the MT back down from the from continentecom automatically from within Trados. Secondly, KantanMT increases productivity in your translation workflow by using Canton Analytics. Canton Analytics is akin to an analysis job when you're running an analysis on a TM, so you can check the projected post-editing effort before sending to translation. Canton Analysis allows you to see how much post-editing you're likely to need for this job, so you're able to work it into your schedule and your budgeting requirements. So it's really taking away the black box feel of MT. You can go with a document that has been academically verified as being as close as possible to a TM analysis, and you can work that into how you're going to plan your projects. And finally, KantanMT increases productivity in your translation workflow with our autoscale technology. So because KantanMT is deployed in the cloud, it means no matter how much you need to translate, KantanMT will scale up to meet your requirements, and it will never hold you back. So no matter what your computing requirement is, because we're operating in the cloud, we can scale up and scale down as required at no extra cost. So I'll hand back over to Tony to discuss some conclusions that we can draw from this presentation.
Okay, so I guess nowadays, if you have a localization strategy that's predicated on human endeavor alone, it's doomed to failure. And that's because of the large increase in content, the requirements by our clients where they want more for less, faster, and the fact that today machine translation has reached a point where it's not only applicable to many industries, it's a very feasible and doable and deployable technology for our clients. So it's very clear from our engagement with our clients and with our localization service partners that automated translation does increase their productivity and does decrease translation times. And I hope from hearing what we've just showed you today and demonstrated today that you will agree that perhaps Cantan could be a solution that you could use or a platform that you could use to grow your business, embracing MT and actually adding added value to your client base as well. So thank you very much for listening, and I hope today was beneficial and helpful to your understanding and help you develop your own machine translation strategy. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tony. Thanks, Louise. That was a great presentation. And now, if you can please stay online and send in your question answers. We have the floor open for your questions. And I think we already have a question which we will go ahead and ask Tony. Probably you'd like to answer this. Andy Jones has asked you the question about how to use English to, what you can say about Japanese to English translation and how you go ahead and use this. What I'll do is, Andy, I'll give you the audio so that you can ask your question. If you can give us a moment. Cool. Oh.
Okay. So, Andy, thank you very much for your question. And in fact, I think I've met Andy before at one or two other engagements. So thank you very much for attending today. And Yes, indeed. English to Japanese, it's one of these kind of big challenges for the machine translation industry. Can we build high quality, high fidelity machine translation systems for that language combination? Well, there's been quite a number of developments recently to improve the prospect of building those engines. So, for instance, one of the latest changes that we've made on the Cantan platform is that we're using new and improved pre-ordering models to make the transition from English to Japanese and Japanese to English much smoother, which will deliver higher quality content and outputs as well. In addition to that, the availability of higher quality training sets for English-Japanese language combinations is now more available in the industry. I remember 2 or 3 years ago when I started looking at building English to Japanese engines, it was a real challenge to get your hands on high quality training data. And today it's still challenging, but it's not as challenging as it was, and there's more content available. So I think those combinations help us. There also are some developments that we're looking into. We haven't actually deployed any of these changes yet, where example-based MT is showing early signs of improvement, or certainly encouraging signs of improving that language arc as well.
Thank you, Tony. We have more questions online right now. I think Sonja, Dania, and Ricardo have 3 questions right there.
Oh.
Dania is asking, have you got any hands-on webinar recorded or on schedule where we could see how the system works hands-on?
Okay. Dania, thanks very much for that question. Yes, in fact we do. If you actually go onto the Cantan platform today, almost every part of the user interface has a video link associated with it, so you can actually watch a video on how to use various features and components. So that's the first thing you can do when you register on the system and start using the system. And I have to say, you know, we work in a very visual environment, and videos are just a great way of learning how to use our system. So every part of our system has a video tutorial built. It's available through the web interface. Now, in addition to that, if you go to our home page or any page on our website and go to the bottom left-hand corner of it, you'll see that we have a YouTube channel. And that YouTube channel contains, I think, 30 or 40 videos up there now on all sorts of topics, from how to build your first engine to how to translate your first document, all the way up to improving your training data and improving the output of your engine. So we've got lots and lots of training resources there basically on your computer screen that you can use. If you also go and click on the resources menu on our site, you'll also see a number of tutorials that will talk you through the basics of machine translation, or rather the basics of statistical machine translations systems, and also guide you and direct you to a number of 3-minute, 4-minute videos that give you the basics of statistical machine translation systems as well. So I think there's a lot of resources there, and I hope I haven't overwhelmed you with the different resource types you can go to. But, you know, explore the website, and I think you'll find something that is of help and hopefully of interest to you and your team.
Thanks, Tony. The next question probably would be for you, Louise. Sonja is asking, do you provide any post-editing recommendations or standards to try to standardize the PE process? Or she also continued asking, you said that the translation productivity rose to 8K words per day. Is this only for PE?
Will I take that question first?
Yeah.
Okay, Sonia, I'll answer the second one first because it's the easier of the 2 questions, okay? And it's the quickest answer. The 8,000 words per day is a post-editing rate, okay? It's not a raw translation rate, it's a post-editing rate. And I think one thing you've got to be conscious of is obviously when you machine translate everything comes out pre-translated. So it's the post-editing effort, that's insertions, deletions and substitutions of words, to get it to publishable quality, or to get to it an acceptable level of quality. Now, your first question is in relation to post-editing, and I'll hand that over to Louise.
Thank you very much, Tony. So I guess what we recommend for our clients when it comes to post-editing is try to use the MT. I think a lot of translators, especially when they're new to using MT, will try and translate, because naturally that's what we would do, and we want to create the best segment possible and the best translation possible. But we advise our clients to copy and paste the MT. If you're doing it in a sort of a document where you have your MT target and then your preferred translation, copy and paste the translation and try and use the MT, because really we advise them that the more you're using the MT and the more you're post-editing, the better your engine will become. And that's really the main, also it should help, it's the main guts behind that, and it should help the translators use the, I think we have a technical problem here, bear with.
Somebody's mic's on.
Your mic's on, yeah.
Actually, Sonia, I'll just add something to Louise's comment there as well. The best example I've come across of PE, post-editing recommendations, is there's a group called TAUS, the Translation Automation User Society. It's set up, it's based out of Holland. In fact, we attended the TAUS annual conference last week, and they also had their quality evaluation summit at eBay in Silicon Valley last week. So very, very good organization, and they are absolutely at the pivot of educating the industry on how to post-edit content. And in fact, on Tuesday of this week, which was yesterday, they gave a webinar-based training course on how to post-edit. So check those guys out. So it's TAUS, T-A-U-S. I think it's taus.net or taus.org. I may be mistaken there. I apologize if I got that wrong. But they're definitely an organization that you'd be able to find lots of information on, and will give you great guidelines in how to approach post-editing, and more importantly, to develop a proficiency in post-editing as well. So they're the real experts at providing training courses on that.
Right. The next question is again from Andy. What do PPX and PEX stand for as abbreviations? Louise, I suppose you were talking about this.
Post-editing automation is PEX. PPX, I'll have to ask the creator.
PPX stands for pre-processor automation.
Okay.
So Andy, what you use PPX files for is to help you normalize or improve training data. We use the word kind of normalize because it's a somewhat fancy word, I guess, but it really means improving training data. So when you hear people say, I've normalized my training data, it means that they've improved it for learning purposes. Okay, so PPX is used to do that, and it's based on our Gentry programming language, which is available free for all of our clients. Now, PEX allows you to take the output of an engine and dynamically change it or improve it. So when would you use that? Well, suppose you had a situation where your engine is repeating the same error over and over again. Okay, we recently had a problem with one of our engines upstairs, and what we simply did was we wrote a PEX file, which again is developed in the Gentry programming language. It's a very, very powerful language, and it allows us to look for patterns in the output of the engine and to dynamically change that to improve the output. So one of the PEX rules that we wrote, for instance, for one of our French clients, was that they did not want to have a space preceding a colon mark, because that was one of their typographical requirements, our typographical standards. So we simply wrote a PEX rule to enforce that stylistic change in the output of their engine, and that enabled them to reduce the number of post edits required quite substantially. So PPX is for training data, whereas PEX is for the output of your engine, the actual raw or the actual translated output of your engine. Okay?
Right, thanks again. And this is a question that we actually got by an email, and Brian, if you can answer this question. It says, we are a mid-sized LSB and we would like to know what benefits we would enjoy if we choose to work with KantanMT over building our own from scratch. The latter would be cheaper, wouldn't it?
Sure. Thanks, Pauline. So I guess you know, the guys have alluded to a lot of features that are in KantanMT. It's very feature rich. and it provides a great user experience. But on top of that, really, what's really underneath KantanMT is the fact that it has access to this massive computer power, which is what statistical machine translation requires in order to perform efficiently and quickly. So KantanMT is uniquely architected really to provide that kind of instant on-demand access to massive machine translation power. As Louise alluded to, we're currently translating up to 500 million words a month, and we've 750 servers deployed currently. So, you know, if you were to try to build something yourself, although you mightn't ever have need for a single LSP, wouldn't have need for that kind of power. Just to give you an idea, that's about $25 million or $28 million worth of servers. So, you know, that's the first reason I would say to look at something like KantanMT. Allied to that, of course, you've got performance like 99.99% uptime is what we can deliver, and we can deliver triple data center disaster recovery. So again, with that kind of security and reliability performance, you know, an LSP can offer clients really mission critical or tier one applications, such as translation of e-commerce sites that need that kind of reliability. And you'd find it very difficult to achieve that if you were to build your own and create your own environment. And finally, I think you know, a lot of work and thought and development hours has gone into creating what we believe is the best user interface, the best functionality set, and ease of integration in the marketplace. So, you know, it would be difficult for you to start from scratch and build your own system like that. So those really, I'd say, are the three reasons why, you know, you consider something that's in the cloud like KantanMT.
Thanks again. We have a lot of questions pouring in. This one is from Sonja again. It's probably Louise, you would like to answer this.
Sure.
The question is, could you also establish rules to convert prices on an e-commerce website with KantanMT?
Hi Sonia, thanks for the question. Yes, absolutely. With KantanMT, you could also establish rules to convert prices. The only limitation with that being that the exchange rate, of course, will fluctuate, but there could be options as well for somehow channeling that information. Otherwise, you would be looking at a fixed sum or a fixed equation to convert those prices. Yep.
All right, thanks so much. And I know there are a few questions out there, and I'm afraid we are running out of time. So we'll just take one last question that we got through Twitter. And Tony, I think you'd like to answer this.
I hope it's an easy one.
Well, the question is, my client does not want to use MT because they had a very bad experience in the past with Bing Translate. What would you convince them? How would you convince them to use KantanMT? And how will the output be any different?
Gotcha. Okay, well, I was hoping for an easy question, and it's not one, so I'll try my best. Okay, well, believe it or not, one of the things that you've got to, I guess, recognize in terms of using the KantanMT platform is that what you're doing is you're going to use this platform to grow your business, to embrace MT, and build customized machine translation engines for your client. So you're not going to build a generic engine. Bing Translate and Google Translate would be generic engines. You're going to customize an engine that is trained on the previous translations that your client has given you. It's going to be trained on the glossary that your client has given you. And it's also going to be trained on some of our stock engines that are from the same domain as your clients. So when you combine that together, you get an engine that will produce, that will mimic the translation style of your client. So it's not like you're going for a generic style of translation. It's designed and customized to mimic the stylistic requirements, the terminology requirements, and the translation stylists style of your client. And if you can achieve that, what you'll see immediately is a lot less requirements for post-editing. And that's the one thing that drives people from using generic systems or broad-based systems to customized systems. And that's what's driving the huge growth in the use of customized MT today. They've tested the generic systems. They found that they're adequate in some cases and totally inadequate in other cases. And now using these cloud-based platforms, they can now get customized MT at an affordable price, which can add real value to their business. So that's the real driver in that. And in fact, we have lots of our clients that have started their journey on MT using the free services and have quickly outgrown those free services and are now deployed fully using customized MT.
Thanks a lot, Tony. Thanks a lot. And once again, you have more questions, and we can always go ahead and answer this if you send us a mail to info@KantanMT.com. But I'm afraid we'll have to stop for now. And thank you so much for your questions, and thanks for attending the webinar. We will send you an email with a link to this recording and answers to all of your questions in the next couple of days. And thanks again. Have a good day. Goodbye.